response, and they really tend to enjoy it for its depiction of this time period and the writer's style, etc. So really, it's just up to you in your reader response how you deal with it, but I just wanted to warn you up front, it is depressing. So as I said, naturalism is a branch off of realism with a philosophical twist. But if we're reviewing like the two movements that we studied before this, let's really think about what were the central ideas of those two movements so that we can start to connect them all together. In Romanticism, we saw a focus on the individual, celebrating imagination, intuition, and creativity as a reaction against the age of reason. Then, realism arose as a reaction against Romanticism. In realism, then, we saw a shift. So realist writers began to see the individual as merely a human being, fully flawed and fully complex. Because so much was changing in society, realist writers tended to focus on capturing or representing those transitions in their writing through complex and dynamic character development, amongst many other things, right? And then now we're moving closer to the 20th century, to the early 20th century. And society is continuing to evolve, and so writers of the naturalist movement are now attempting to capture that change in their writing. The quote at the top of your lecture notes really captures the essence of naturalism very well. And so it reads, "Reveling in the extraordinary, the excessive, and the grotesque in order to reveal the immutable bestiality of man and nature, dramatizing the loss of individuality at a physiological level by making a Calvinism without God its determining order and violent death its utopia." This is Campbell and Naturalism in American Literature. And so, you can already see that the subjects are rather heavy that we're going to be talking about for this movement. Before I go through the definitions, does anybody know anything about Calvinism? Yes?
It's founded by John Calvin,
Yes.
and it's based on predestination, which is the idea that you're destined to go to heaven no matter, well, certain people are destined to go to heaven no matter what you do on earth.
Correct, you're pre-selected. And so in this branch of Christianity, Calvinism, you are pre-selected to either go to hell or to heaven before you're born. And so Calvinism is the idea of predetermination, basically, but in a religious sense. In the quote, it says, in naturalism, there's a Calvinism without God. So predetermination without God. And violent death is its utopia. And I think that when we come back to that later, you'll understand the quote a lot more clearly. So naturalism is a type of literature that attempts to apply specific principles of objectivity and detachment to its study of human beings. Objectivity and detachment to its study of human beings. It's a movement in literature that used detailed realism, or believable, everyday reality, to suggest that social conditions, heredity, and environment are inescapable forces, and determine human character and destiny. Naturalism is an extension of realism with the addition of pessimistic determinism. So determinism then means what? Actually, it's defined here. Number 5. Oh, I'll go ahead and read that. Determinism is a theory that acts of will, occurrences in nature, or social or psychological phenomena are causally determined by preceding events or natural laws. Can someone redefine that in your own words? What is determinism? Because Mitchell already was hinting at that with his definition of Calvinism, but what is determinism? Thomas?
Through that, basically you have no free will there, so it's already been, it's by fate.
So no free will, everything's been determined, you have no choice. Heredity and environment and forces of nature will govern your life. And you have no say in it. Okay, so some of the philosophy that is emerging during this time period in public discourse, in thought, in writing, really influenced the way that naturalist writers constructed their pieces. So we had Émile Zola in France writing about the Darwinian theory in Le Roman Expérimental. Essentially, the message of this text is that man is a victim of nature. Then you have people thinking at this time that human beasts are products and should be studied impartially without moralizing about their natures. In other words, humans can be like rats in cages, subjected to scientific experiments, and there is no moralizing involved. It's just pieces in a machine, essentially, that you can test and learn from. So because of the emergence of the scientific method right now at this time period, you are seeing that authors are studying human beings and how they're governed by their instincts and passions, as well as forces of heredity and environment, in order to understand the laws that govern the forces of nature. So you see a scientific focus on human beings, and you see like a very clinical observation of human beings, and I'll touch on what clinical means in a little bit. Historically and socially, what's going on during this time period? So the Industrial Revolution has been following us through our literary movements, but now people are really disillusioned. People are really, not, I'm generalizing, but naturalists are very pessimistic, and they're very disillusioned with what the Industrial Revolution has created, which in their minds means that we are all cogs in the machine, that we are nothing but commodities, that factory workers are just another, just another commodity, or something to be replaced, something easily replaced. Right? So now human beings are seen by the naturalists as being very replaceable and really just, again, cogs in the machine. And you also see a rise in urbanization, obviously. We've touched on that a few times, but here in naturalist writing, you'll see more emphasis on urban settings because they are excellent fodder for a naturalist story to take place in. So again, there are advancements and interest in the scientific method. In the scientific realm, we had the Age of Reason, then we had the Age of intuition with Romanticism, then we had realism, and now we're seeing a rise in science. We're seeing a rise in scientific methods. So seeing people as a scientific study. Karl Marx. Who would like to talk about Karl Marx? Anything you know about him at all? Yeah. Yes. So what are his core principles? And yes, so what is the basic principle of communism? Exactly. Where do you want to expand?
Where the state wants to lose possession.
Yes, you define that well. Thomas.
In his view, it's just the ultimate government. You have to go through steps from the most basic government to the ideal.
Yeah. And so then naturalist writers are exploring Marxism and the potential flaws that it has in its theory. That there is this theory of class struggle. In the US, we're seeing capitalism, meritocracy. You earn what you get. You get what you earn. You get what you earn. You merit whatever, you receive whatever you merit. Meritocracy. Capitalism. Rise from your bootstraps. Naturalist writers are challenging that. They're wondering, really, is it possible to actually make something of yourself once you're